It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do, you do. From the Dixieline Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines, as we head towards a great sports weekend. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley, and we welcome you to our Thursday show. This podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, and the new one that's opened up in Dana Point in Orange County. You got projects, they've got materials, you want ideas, they can be a consultant. Go to Dixieline.com to see all the things that they have to offer. Build it, fix it. You will enjoy it in 2025, courtesy of Dixieline. John Riley, good afternoon. We're at the midway point of spring training. We're on the eve of the opening of NFL free agency. We got the NHL trading deadline, which is right on top of us. Man, there's a lot to talk about.
And March Madness is coming. So, I mean, there's a lot going on.
This podcast, we do sports talk the way it should be done. Just a couple of notes. When we're done with this podcast, we put topics on the table. We open it up. We give you the opportunity to respond. Questions, answers, statements, cheap shots, critiques. It's called Fans Forum. John, describe it.
Okay, Fans Forum. Already we see some of our Winnipeg friends diving in, Schickster and Manny. So if you got a question or comment in the world of sports, comment here for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Just type in your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
And a reminder, if you like sports, I write sports every day. It's in your computer first thing every morning on my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. If you dial it up, you'll find anything and everything, all the late-breaking stories. That's on my website. And on the front page of my website, there's an orange box. We invite you to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You'll get on our special email list for different things that we make available. You're on social media. I want you on my Twitter All-Star team. Need you to become a follower. Just hit Hacksaw 1090, hit follow, Hacksaw 1090, hit the follow button. Want you to share, tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and want you to subscribe. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll thereby get the special alerts because we put a lot of unique things up on the channel almost every day of the week. So we're all over social media. Glad to have you as part of the team. You had something you wanted to add?
No, we are everywhere, but you've got your promo piece down pat.
We got topics on the table to talk about. John, where do you want to start?
Well, let's talk about the Padres. I mean, they're playing the Rangers. I just noticed that Merrill hit a home run. I think Eggy Rosario hit a home run, but they still have some challenges.
Yeah, we're at the midway point of the Cactus League and the Grapefruit Circuit. And part of me, John, would say wins and losses in spring training don't really mean much. The most important thing, do you get answers to questions? So therefore, I'm not hitting the red panic button over here because the Padres are 1-9-1 since the first week of spring training. Not playing real well. But that being said, they're not getting answers to questions about depth, questions about vacancies in the everyday batting order, questions, do we have enough pitching? So flash up the first topic here as it relates to Padre baseball, because this is the big issue. They need a left fielder. They need to replace virtually the entire bench bunch. Have yet to decide who's the catcher. And they're not hitting at all. Nobody's hardly hitting at all. And we're halfway through spring training. And usually in the Cactus League and the Grapefruit Circuit, John, hitters are way ahead of the pitchers in spring training. And the Padres going into this Thursday exhibition game as a team were in 231. Nobody is hitting. And these are all the guys that they brought in, hoping to find a left fielder, hoping to find a starting catcher, hoping to find the right mix in the bench bunch. Hasn't worked yet. Now, I will say this. Terso Ornelas, the kid hit 23 home runs last year at El Paso, just continues to swing a pretty good stick. He's hitting .421. He might be their opening day left fielder. The refugee who came from Cleveland and the Yankees, Oscar Gonzalez, He's hitting 348 this spring. Now, he's not playing every day, but when he's played, he's contributed. Connor Joe is Connor Joe, the ex-Rocky and Pirate. Now, because he's an established major league guy, he'll probably be a bench bunch guy, but he's only batting 231. Eggy Rosario might be a third baseman, might be a second baseman, might be part of the mix in left field. He's got extra base hits, but he's only batting 178 this spring. They wanted to go to camp and unlock the mystery that was Gavin Sheets. He can hit home runs, but he strikes out a lot. Have not unlocked it yet. He's only hitting 151. I'm kind of surprised Jason Hayward has no hits this spring. I think he's had 12 at-bats. Has he lost his bat speed? I think that becomes the big question there. Yuli Gurriel, whom they just signed a couple weeks ago, he's 40 years of age, ex-Houston Astro, ex-Marlin. He's only hitting $163. And the catching situation's not really resolved. Former All-Star, former Rocky DIAZ is only hitting $183. Campusano, who's got all this world of talent, and they've been waiting for it to come together, he's hit only 182. And it's obvious Martin Maldonado, when he arrived here, brought his gloves, but the airlines must have lost his bats. He has no base hits at all. So, John, those are the guys that we're trying to get some answers to. They don't have very many answers, and I got 2.5 weeks to go before the start of the baseball season. What do you think?
I always get the sense in spring training that this is a little bit of a lottery, where they get a bunch of these sort of cast-offs and guys that never lived up to their potential, hoping to strike gold with one of them. And so it seems it's Ornelas' turn this year. So good for him. But like going back to that list, I look at some of these names. Campusano has got to figure this out. He's been struggling with the stick. He's shown moments. He's been terrific. He needs to figure out. Gurriel is not going to make this team. Hayward and Joe, I think they're on major league contracts. They'll probably be in the mix. I've been hearing people talking about Eggy Rosario as a potential, trade ship. So what do you take on that?
Well, I don't know that there's very much value. And, as we get towards opening day, everybody's got the same roster crunch situation. So I'm not sure you're going to trade for somebody who's going to take up a slot on your 25-man or your 40-man roster. I don't know at this point. They got a couple more weeks to go, but I am surprised that nobody's hit at all because historically, spring training, hitters are way ahead of pitchers in spring training, except in San Diego's camp.
Yeah. But you remember, every once in a while, there's a player that we've never heard of that just goes crazy in spring training and lights it up, and then they make the major league roster and they last like maybe 3 weeks.
That's when I start throwing curveballs and cutters and all that.
Yeah, so everything about spring training is just kind of weird. It's like it's hard to judge reality.
Okay, let's go to next topic on the table. Just a couple of other things from the baseball notebook.
Yeah, the Dodgers, the Padres, and Roki Sasaki debut.
That was pretty dazzling. Dave Roberts spoke in glowing terms. They let Sasaki throw 3 innings in his first exhibition game. His fastball was clocked at 95 consistently. His cutter was clocked at 87, and it was dropping out. And he had a fastball or two that was topped at 99 miles an hour. So Sasaki went 3 innings, no runs, 2 hits, 5 Ks, and dude was clocked at 95 with a couple of hot ones at 99 miles an hour. That was pretty impressive. A.J. Preller was seen in the parking lot outside Dollar General. He came out with a shortstop or a second baseman or a super utility guy. He was shopping on the $1.98 table again for another player, Jose Iglesias. I've always liked him. I thought very serviceable. The guy hit 337 with the Mets when they finally brought him to the major leagues in the middle of the last season, and the Mets, of course, propelled themselves into the pennant race. He's not a 337 hitter, but for 6 weeks, he was. He's a 283 lifetime hitter, but most of that was early in his career. But his numbers are pretty serviceable, and he's a multi-position guy. It's kind of strange nobody signed him, but now the Padres have him, and maybe he hits his way onto this roster, and maybe he becomes one of the bench bunch guys. And because of his diversity, he can play second, can play short, can play third, can play left if somebody's going to get hurt, and somebody always gets hurt. But it's weird. As productive as Iglesias has been, came up with the Red Sox, long run with the Tigers, short spurts, did pretty well with Cincinnati, not so well with the Angels, etc. He's been with 7 different teams. So there must be some real glitches in his game that He has not stayed with anybody since early on in his career with Boston and Detroit. Now he's just kind of moved around, and that's why he was on the $1.98 table when AJ Preller went shopping at Dollar General. Thoughts?
Well, Iglesias was obviously huge for the Mets last year and brings all of this energy to the table. Is an interesting story about him because, yeah, he has bounced around. He was in the Padres organization, but he was in El Paso, right? And then people discounted his good hitting in El Paso. They said, it's the elevation. It's the Pacific Coast League. And then he played previously for the Rockies. Say, it's the Rockies. It doesn't count. But he proved it last year. So he's a hell of a lot better than, Yuri Gurriel or some of these other names that are on that list. The Roki Sasaki one is unbelievable because I saw video clips of him, and his release point for all of his pitches is almost exactly the same, where it comes out of his hand in the exact same spot.
Same slot.
Which is, the same slot, which is so powerful. And apparently his splitter just drops off the table, and it's because it's almost like a knuckleball with such little rotation. So I just love the innovation in pitching that a lot of these Japanese pitchers bring to the table.
Well, we're 2 weeks out from the start of the Dodgers season in Japan against the Chicago Cubs, and Yamamoto is going to start one game. We believe Sasaki is going to start the second one. Okay, that's all things baseball. If you're a Padre fan, Dodger fan, feel free to jump on board. Give us an opinion. We're talking baseball. You're hitting leadoff right now. Fans Forum chat box is open. If that's not enough, opening of NFL free agency is just around the corner.
Yeah, and there's some big names, that have been on this list.
We're going to look at the top lists of guys who are about to become free agents. Agents can start talking to teams on March 6th. Teams can start signing players officially, although players can make commitments on March 10th. In the quarterback category, Minnesota went back and forth. Did not franchise tag Sam Darnold despite 35 touchdowns. Tell you what, the last 3 games of the season that they lost, that was not good. And that kind of damaged him a little bit. I think it may have scared some people off. Plus, I'm not sure that a lot of people want to sign him to a $35 million a year contract that he's asking. Minnesota has not signed him, did not franchise tag him. So it gets to me that it may be that Minnesota is going to re-sign Daniel Jones, the ex-Giant quarterback, and pair him with J.J. McCarthy. Darnold goes on the open market. Aaron Rodgers is talking to teams. Aaron Rodgers is making visits. Aaron Rodgers might be bringing his best friend with him, but it would be at a discount price. Nobody's going to pay Aaron Rodgers $40 million for the coming season. The other 2 names are both in Pittsburgh. One's going to stay, but they've not signed Justin Fields yet. So he could get to March 6th as a free agent, which means other people start calling him. Russell Wilson, I'm led to believe, is going to be on the street corner, and he'll be a free agent again. So those are the marquee quarterbacks right at the top of the draft board. Wide receiver, I mentioned Aaron Rodgers' best friend, Devontae Adams, released by the New York Jets. He was not going to get paid $27 million. I'm led to believe the 49ers are first in line to get a shot at him, but he's going to have to take a pay cut unless he wants to go back to Green Bay. And that rumor is out there, or unless he wants to accompany Aaron Rodgers wherever Rodgers goes. But then again, he's going to have to take a pay cut. Chris Godwin has put together back-to-back really great seasons in Tampa, suffered a really bad knee injury, did not play after about the 3rd, 4th week of the season. Tampa wants to re-sign him. Bit of a question mark how ready he will be for the opening of the Buccaneers season. Other people are out there. Seattle's changing everything at wide receiver. Tyler Lockett has been released. This guy caught a ton of passes, 600-plus passes with the Seahawks, 10-year veteran. Christian Kirk, explosive wide receiver, former Arizona Cardinal. Kirk with Jacksonville, averaging 14 yards per catch, high price tag. Jaguars wound up letting him go. So those are the wide receiver guys. There's hardly any tackles out there, and there's a reason. The left tackle is a gold standard player. Ronnie Stanley, Baltimore Ravens, has been rock solid, but has had major knee injuries. He's on the open market. Cam Robinson, former high #1 draft pick, Jacksonville, finished up in Minnesota. He's unsigned. Mickey Becton, who was a bust as a #1 pick, went to the Jets and became an inside guard and played really well. He's back on the open market. Defensive pass rush guys. Joey Bosa was put on the market at 8 o'clock last night, released by the Chargers. He is going to be a hot commodity. Now, he's not going to get $25 million, as he was slated to earn this last year with the Bolts, he's going to get picked up and picked up pretty quickly. It's interesting. The second and third name in the defensive line group are both from Philadelphia, Josh Sweat and Martin Williams. Williams is a fast-developing inside defensive tackle. I am surprised the Eagles have not been able to get him re-signed, but both Sweat and Williams, free agents from Philadelphia. Chance Young, former number 1 pick out of Ohio State, nice career Washington, but major knee injuries, bounced around and left, went to Jacksonville. He is a free agent back on the open market. Linebackers, Khalil Mack is still unsigned. Hot rumor, the Bears are interested. Nick Bolton, do everything Kansas City. Bit of a surprise, he's not yet been signed. But again, the Chiefs are juggling some dollars, and maybe they don't want to pay $25 million to Nick Bolton. And the guys in the secondary, Carlton Davis, ex-Lion, former Tampa Bay. He's had injury problems. Darius Slay, just cut loose by Philadelphia. He's very affordable. That's a pretty good player. He'll probably get picked up quickly. And Brian Murphy, young cornerback, Minnesota. Vikings, I still think, have to re-sign him, but he's on the open market too. So, John, those are marquee names on the free agent market. And again, March 6th, teams talk to agents. Players can commit on March 6th, March 7th, and they normally do, can't sign till March 10th. So things are going to happen real quick in the NFL right out of the gate. So top that list off. Go ahead. Pick a position. What do you think happens?
Well, first of all, I think the Vikings kind of letting loose on Darnold, I think is the right move, because it's too risky to invest in him, and you're going to tie up your salary cap for 5-6 years if you sign him that deal, and you can't trust him after those last 2 games in the regular season and playoffs. The Fields-Wilson thing in Pittsburgh is kind of weird. It seems like neither one of them is really the answer, but you can't have 2 mediocre guys there. Love seeing the names. I mean, Slay and Sweat on the list is great. Do you just pronounce it Sweet or Sweat?
I've heard both.
Okay. I mean, I just love that. And then, Joey Bosa. I mean, let's talk about him for a minute, because he has gotten hurt so much.
He's had injuries 7 of the 9 years in San Diego and in LA.
Yeah. I mean, he's just really had a rough go. And it just seemed like it was time to finally turn the page. But what was interesting about Bosa, I think he was the last of the San Diego Chargers.
Well, that's not the correct statement. They've gotten rid of everybody, with the exception of the owner of the team. Spanos is the last of the San Diego Chargers.
Okay.
But no, Bosa had a good run. He made an enormous amount of money. I don't think he ever panned out to be the consistently explosive pass rusher, because he was hurt all the time. He was hurt 7 of his 9 years. In the last couple of seasons, he played 28 games. He missed 23. And he was making mega money. His cap figure was $36 million. He was owed a $12 million bonus next week, and the Chargers said no. And he had taken cuts and given money back to try to keep the team together. But at the end of the day, he's out of there. I guess the thing that shocks me, I have a philosophy. Mine might be different from some other general manager. I don't dump players out in the street unless I got players ready to replace them. Who's going to replace Bosa? And what happens if Khalil Mack leaves? Because they don't want to pay a 31-year-old linebacker $30 million per year. What if he leaves? 2 of your best pass rushers are gone. What's your defense look like?
Well, I think they're going to hope to get another Jared Verse or someone like that in the draft. That's got to be part of the strategy.
Mm-hmm. So that's where we are there.
Well, with Joey Bosa, I have a question. Obviously, his brother Nick has done really, really well. But when Joey Bosa was coming into the NFL 9 years ago, or whenever it was he projected to be a better player than his younger brother? Or how did you take that? Like, if there were no injuries, who's a better Bosa?
Well, I'd say Nick Bosa, because he's bigger and more physical. I always thought Joey was really undersized to be a defensive end in the NFL. And of course, they kind of convert him with new defenses, and he's more of a linebacker. But he came in as an undersized defensive end. He'd get blown up by these tackles. Now, he was also a pretty good pass rush guy, and he could beat people. But boy, he just had so many injuries, and it was something different every year. And he was gone for extended periods of time. And he cashed in on his second contract. Was a really big contract because he had just come off good seasons, and you thought, here he is. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 injury after injury. He started missing all these games and missing chunks of seasons, and it's just, and the cap number kept going up. And when you renegotiate, that tacks it onto the back of the cap number in terms of dead money. So tough situation for the Chargers. Good player, not his brother, Nick Bosa, for sure. And Nick's had major injury problems too. It's a tough game, but he's more undersized. And Nick Bosa is a better physical specimen.
Now, Khalil Mack, is he going to retire or is he going to be a free agent?
Oh, he's going to play. He's a free agent.
Because wasn't he contemplating retirement?
Yeah, and then he came back and said, I'm going to play. But the Chargers did not get him signed before the window opened. And now he's on the open market.
I mean,
and
how old is he?
At 31. And
that's all? I mean, he seems to like been around forever.
Yeah, but he's at 9 or 10 years. He's had no major injuries. Different type player, strong side linebacker with the ability to run. The rumor mill out there is that he might wind up going back to the Chicago Bears because he had a good working relationship with people when he was with Chicago. But he's going to go where the money is. And obviously the Chargers are not going to pay him the kind of money. Again, his cap figure is $30 million too. It's just not going to do that. Not for a 31-year-old player.
Yeah, it's a math problem, really.
Yeah. And it's just not with the Chargers. It's all over the NFL. What do you think happens with the quarterbacks? What do you think becomes of Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know if any team is really willing to take on all the baggage and all the distractions that come around with him, knowing that he's only going to play maybe one more year, right? I mean, we were contemplating maybe he would go to the Raiders, and that sounds interesting, but a lot of Raider fans don't want him at all, So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't really find a job.
Well, I think he'll find a job, but his ego is going to have to be parked in the corner.
Good luck.
Because, well, exactly. And he's going to take a pay cut. Nobody's going to pay him $40 million. That ship has sailed. So he can sign somewhere for 20 and maybe get a first and a second year option. It'd be intriguing to see if he signed him and Davante Adams came with him. What if Pittsburgh did that? Because Pittsburgh has had no quality quarterbacking since Ben Roethlisberger retired. What if Pittsburgh got Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams came, both on discounts, because Pittsburgh desperately needs wide receivers to complement George Pickens. So it's going to be interesting to see where Aaron Rodgers lands and whether he brings the wide receiver with him.
Well, I wonder if Pittsburgh and the lunch pail, coal mine in town would put up with all of Aaron Rodgers' BS. I'm not sure. But, I saw there was a great clip on social media, and it was like a rainstorm on a street, and there were these two trash bins sliding down the street in the rain, and they go, there goes Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams to their next team.
Didn't work out. Holy cow, it did not work out. So you got a comment, a question, a statement on the NFL free agencies right at your front door. Feel free to jump on board. We're looking for NFL fans to join us in Fans Forum. That chat box is open. One other football note. This is coming out of Indianapolis.
Yeah, the combine.
Yeah, the combine is completed. Let me run through a couple of notes for you about what is being said, what is being written with the combine. Now, marquee names did not work out. The quarterbacks did not work out. The top running back did not work out. The wide receivers did not work out. They're all going to do that at their pro day. However, there are people with opinions and comments about what happened. Shedeur Sanders did not get positive comments after his meetings with teams in Indianapolis. Each team's allowed to have a private session, introduce themselves, do chalkboard stuff with the players. The sources telling NFL people that Shedeur Sanders was unprofessional in his meetings. He acted disinterested, and he acted as if he were entitled. Obviously, that comes from the coach. That comes from his father, the coach, Deion Sanders. So Shedeur Sanders, evidently, leaving Indianapolis, and he didn't work out, kind of left a bad impression on a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, my bet is that he was selectively doing that to teams he didn't want to play for.
Not a red flag.
Well, he's putting out a red flag because he doesn't want to go play for, the Jets or the Giants. He wants to go somewhere where, his father is paving the way for him.
Conversely, the other quarterback, Cam Ward, he lit it up. He didn't work out, but he lit it up in the face-to-face meetings. He lit it up on the whiteboards with the coaches, etc. He lit it up with his vibrancy and his personality.
Nice.
So a lot of positive reviews with Cam Ward. Really interesting about Travis Hunter. Now, he could be the number 1 pick to Tennessee. But the word that I was told, the word used to describe Travis Hunter was pushy. I want this. You need to consider using me this way. He wants to be a 2-position player. NFL teams say there's not enough hours in a day for you to be a 2-position player like you were at Colorado. This isn't a Big 12 conference. But he kind of pushed that agenda with all the meetings. I don't think he's pushed himself out of the number 1 pick in the draft. He's just going to have to do what the club wants him to do, whether it's to be their top cover corner or to maybe be a wide receiver. I was told Tennessee views him as a cornerback first, but they would let him play a little bit of wide receiver. I was told the Browns want him as a wide receiver. Interesting storyline there. Quarterbacks moving up the board. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, threw well. Really impressive. Quarterback nobody's been talking about, may have pushed himself into the 2nd round, and he's big, he's stationary, he's got a cannon for an arm. Tyler Slaught from the University of Louisville. Played on a bad team, but he did a really good job. And the worst workouts, we talked about the Alabama quarterback, Jalen Milroe. Erratic, just all over the place. Did not have good meetings in terms of answering questions about formations and whiteboard. He didn't do well. And Ohio State's quarterback, Will Howard, I don't know if you saw the video. I've never seen a workout as bad as that, where they're throwing an air to receivers running routes. He wouldn't hit anybody. He was throwing in front of them, throwing way over them, throwing behind them. It was he cost himself in the I don't know where he's going to go on the draft board, but a lot of people thought, based on his success at Ohio State, prior at Kansas State, that Will Howard was going to be in a 2nd round, 3rd round. I know people now talking about 5th round. I mean, his workout was really poor. How could you be panic-stricken when you've played in all the biggest games in the world in college football for Ohio State and come out and put on such a ragtag passing performance? His mechanics are all screwed up, and he just didn't hit anybody. And these are simple routes. It's not with pass rush with guys in your face. These are simple 3-step drop, boom, put it there. Where are you throwing it? Threw it into the bench. Threw it over the guy's head. It was not good at all. So that's news and notes. Ashton Genty, by the way, very impressive interviews. He did not work out, did not do any of the physicality stuff, but it's on the tape. And of course, everybody will be pouring into Boise State's pro day. I project he's going to be a top 10 pick. Who'll be the first running back off the board. So that's the latest from the combines.
Yeah, when you hear the story about Will Howard, it confirms why Shedeur Sanders and all these other guys don't work out. In case everything kind of went wrong, they had an unlucky day. When they sit and I have this vision in my head that when they're having their sit-down conversation, you say the whiteboard, I think of those John Gruden quarterback camps, where they talk about the game. And I'd imagine that would be a really great conversation to be a fly on the wall.
Oh, yeah. And everybody's in there, but these are kids that all they've done for 3 years at Ohio State or wherever they played. That's what they do in team meetings and coaches, etc. So it should not be a shocker. You should not be intimidated. But you do have, obviously, the general manager. You have the head coach. You have the quarterback coach. You have the offensive coordinator. You have your passing game coordinator. And they're sitting in there with you, and they're throwing questions at you. And then they're putting formations up on a whiteboard and say, okay, this is what you read when you come to line of scrimmage. Your pre-read. What are you going to do? Maybe it's too much cerebral for them, and they can't handle it. Some guys do well on whiteboards, and other guys don't.
What about Quinn Ewers? Have you heard anything about him?
I heard he was elevating himself into the 2nd round, but I've not heard very much since that point in time. He was a little spotty, though, and even during the course of the playoffs, he had bad stretches in games for the Longhorns during the playoffs, but Texas had all those great skill guys that kind of helped them bail them out. He's going to get drafted. I don't know if he's a 2nd round pick. Maybe he's going to be a 2nd day choice, but he'll get a look-see.
All right. It's coming up soon, next month, right?
Yeah, draft is in April. Okay, that's all things college football. Calls, comments invited. Jump on board. Fans Forum chat box is open. We get to halftime. Our Great Sports Weekend podcast is underway. This podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects. They've got materials. You want ideas. These people can help you. Hell, They help dumbass colorblind talk show host make the right choice as it relates to paints on the wall. Hey, dumbass, that's blue. That's not green or brown. You know that, don't you? No, I didn't know that. Anyhow, I've done business with him. I'm pleased. Windows, doors, my place. He's got all kinds of Dixieline products here in the castle.
Yeah, and they're really good with power tools. Let's bring up this video here. And this is a video about DeWalt, and they carry all the big names of power tools, cordless power tools. And if it's not DeWalt, it's Milwaukee. There's all the brands that are there. So if you're a contractor, you're a do-it-yourself homeowner, Dixieline is like your local hardware store, and then you can roll in there and get the best tools in the business, and they're often running great deals. If you go to Dixieline.com, you'll learn more about their tool fairs, where you can get and see the demos as with the manufacturers, as well as getting really good discounts.
All the guys that watch this podcast, if you got a birthday coming up, or if there's an anniversary coming, you should just message the partner, the wife, the lady, whomever, that's what you want. You want something from DeWalt's lineup of goods at Dixieline, and then go online, pick it, and she'll pay for it. That's your gift. How's that idea work?
Well, it's funny. That's a great idea for a man gift. But try buying the wife a vacuum cleaner. You're going to get punched in the nose.
No, here's a credit card. Go pick the vacuum cleaner out you want.
Okay.
But make sure you stop at the DeWalt display at Dixieline and buy me what I want.
There you go.
Great gift idea. Dixieline.com. Couple of other notes. When we're done with topics on the table, man, we got 200 people with us on live stream. When we're done with the sucker, we want you to jump on board into Fans Forum, into the chat box. We got all these people that watch us on live stream. We want you to participate. First-timers are invited. Pick the topic and then pick up the statement, and we'll argue. Fans Forum coming up right at the end. You like sports? Have you ever checked my website? Go to my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. It's all written. It's their first thing every morning. You might be a big NFL fan. You don't care about the other stuff. That's okay. Just read the NFL page. You might be big into baseball. Feel free. Got spring training notes. NBA. Here comes the NHL trade deadline. We do NASCAR. We do PGA golf. We do soccer abroad, plus what's going on here in town. You pick the topic. There's probably something on my website you can read, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Also, there's Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Fill out the orange box. You'll get on our emailing list. I want you on social media. I know you're on social media. Don't lie to me about not being on social media. I see what you write about me on social media. I just want you to join my team. Hacksaw's Twitter All-Stars on X. Just type in my handle, @Hacksaw1090, and follow. That's great. And we want you to share. Tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 Pacific. And we want you to subscribe. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you will get an alert every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. We do that quite often. I try to get John not to post at 2:30 in the morning, but John sometimes puts some of her videos up at 2:30. But you'll get at least the alert that there's something there on the YouTube channel you should see. We kind of got the whole bloody thing covered on social media, and we're into our third year of doing this together, and he hasn't divorced me yet, and he hasn't been thrown out of his own house yet by the First Lady. But this thing's working.
It really is, and we were just running the online analytics for Dixieline Lumber.
Metrics.
Yeah, the metrics. And in 2024, there were 6.5 million impressions, of Hacksaw content, whether it's in the audio downloads or in the Instagram stories or in, Twitter. I mean, 6.5, and that was really a conservative number, based on our estimates. So yeah, you're all over the place. Hardest working man in sports journalism.
You are to blame for making this so successful. We're glad to have you on board here as part of our Monday and Thursday podcast. John, we go to the second half. You want to start with hoops?
Yeah, NBA. We could talk a little bit of Lakers.
Should I say this? Can I say this truthfully? No, I was the one that the aftermath of the draft and then the aftermath of the Luka Doncic trade just question who they were, what they could become, what they were short of. And right now, team's playing really good basketball. Should I say I was wrong? Nah. But they are playing really well. Luka, LeBron are really clicking. It's really unorthodox. It's the strangest look when they're on the floor together. They're not running a hell of a lot of set plays. They're running the offense through Luka. Luka will make shots. Luka will draw fouls. Luka will throw the ball all over the court. I mean, it's fabulous to watch. It's not real disciplined, and they're hitting a lot of three-point shots along the way. So far, so good. I mean, these dudes, they've won 12 of their last 14, and they're playing really well. I still think they're deficient in the paint. I know they still got big games left against more quality people than they've played recently, but 12 wins out of 14 is not bad. Let's talk about the other team. Nah, I'm not going to say I was wrong yet. I'm just going to tell you this is what I think. The other team, Dallas. What a nightmare of a season. What a disaster. First, Luka's gone. Then they lost Anthony Davis, who's not back. They don't know if he's coming back. Their other two bigs got hurt. And now Kyrie Irving is gone for the year with a torn knee ligament. What a disaster with the Dallas Mavericks. And then there's the Sacramento Kings, who've moved a lot of players out, moved different players in. They lose their star, Domantas Sabonis, the son of the great legendary center. He's gone indefinitely. He was averaging 19 points and 14 rebounds a game, and he goes down. I'm trying to think, it was at a quad. I mean, it was a really bad injury. What a terrible setback in Sacramento when at one point you thought, this thing is on the rise. This thing is doing really well. And obviously they traded De'Aaron Fox, and now they lose Sabonis along the way. And the other night, I mean, the Clippers, we've talked, John and I have just kind of kept tabs on how they're escalating the minutes for Kawhi Leonard. He played 38 minutes one night, played 40 the next. That's too much. Couldn't play last night. James Harden went off for 50 points. Had to score 50 because they did not have Kawhi and they did not have Norm Powell because of injuries. So I don't know this. They've really pushed Kawhi Leonard. His minutes are way up there, and I just don't know that physically he's ready to handle that kind of workload. He did that on back-to-back nights, which absolutely stunned me. So, John, you're not going to tell me I was wrong, are you? I mean,
you wrong?
Nah.
No. You know what's interesting? Speaking of James Harden, he's been donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to his alma mater, Arizona State, for their NIL fund, to keep and retain and attract new players. I thought, hey, man, that's good. I like hearing that. But, the Lakers, it's funny how when the Lakers rarely ever have a terrible year, right? When they're like kind of mid, just sort of squeaking into the playoffs, that's sort of the bottom of what they can accomplish. Meanwhile, there are other teams like the Mavericks. Well, the Mavericks have had success. The Kings have been terrible forever, but the Kings just get snake bit again, and it's weird how some teams have bad luck and other teams can mostly avoid it.
Yeah. Lakers, they're playing really well. I don't know. The playoffs start Monday. We still have time to be played the rest of the schedule.
The playoffs started today. I mean, where would the Lakers be seated?
Well, they're second in their own division.
In the division, so maybe like a 4 or a 5 in the West?
3 or 4 or 5.
3 or 4, yeah.
We got time. But people I've seen social media just barking at me. Admit you were wrong. Nah, not yet. Let's get to the finish line when we get to the end of the regular season, and we'll see how they finish up. But to me, it's really intriguing. Just to think about how Luka plays with LeBron and how they make this thing happen. I mean, these guys are 38 and 21. JJ Redick used a term last night. I'm trying to recall. He says when Luka's on the floor, it's non-cadence basketball. And I thought, what does that mean? And he says there's no structure. It's not like the coach standing on side going, holding up a fist and say, run play 5. There's none of that junk going on. It's Luka looking at what he wants, and then it's his big frame. Luka starts a dribble, and next thing you know, boom, throws it in the corner, and somebody hits a 3-point shot. Or he fakes a shot and hits LeBron on a cutter. But JJ says, there's no cadence to what we're doing, which in essence means it's kind of like freelance basketball.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I mean, because it shocks the defense. They don't know how to react or how to respond. But, that's what makes basketball a beautiful sport, is when you have guys that can pass really well and that ball starts moving around. Because, we get tired of the 3-point shots and the slam dunks and all that stuff, the fouls. You give me a guy that passes the ball and immediately the electricity goes up.
You're not taking a bar of soap and a washcloth and wiping away Anthony Edwards and Jimmy Butler and all the other crap that we've had to talk about all year, are you?
Well, no, it is. It's something interesting to talk about the Lakers. Maybe Pelinka finally figured out the right formula, the right chemistry to make this thing work.
Lakers line is open. We're looking for somebody with an NBA opinion to join us in the chat box. Fans Forum Lakers line wants your contribution. We go from all things hoops, hockey hotline, a lot of topics.
Yeah, trade deadline.
Trade deadline comes up Friday at 3 p.m. East Coast time. Friday at noon out here in Southern California. There have been, as of this hour, 24 trades made, 8 trades in the last 36 hours in the NHL. And there's still a lot of names out there that could be dealt. On the clock in Vancouver, are they going to trade former 40-goal scorer Brock Besser? They've not signed into a contract extension. He turned down $8 million a year from the Canucks last week. I don't know how Vancouver can trade him, but if they're going to lose him, maybe they're going to be forced to trade him. And would somebody else rent him, not knowing whether or not they could get a contract extension? The Anaheim Ducks, second logo up there on the top right. They were shopping John Gibson, the goaltender. He got hurt last night. Got nailed by one of his own guys in a tough loss up in Vancouver. He's playing pretty well. He's playing back to almost John Gibson all-star playoff type goaltending. But he's got a pricey contract. The other intriguing guy is Trevor Zegras, the former number 1 pick, who's had a lot of injuries. He's just never come back to be the goal scorer that many people thought. And that general manager, Pat Verbeek, doesn't care. He's going to trade whom he wants to trade, doesn't care how high they were drafted in somebody else's regime. So maybe there's another trade coming from the Ducks. By the way, the Ducks did make a deal this morning. They traded Brian Dumoulin, a veteran stay-at-home defenseman. He went to New Jersey for a second-round draft pick and the rights to a goal scorer from Sweden. So that's pretty good to get a young haul like that for a veteran guy. New York Islanders can't decide whether they're in or out of the playoff race. The name that they're shopping right now is Brook Nelson, defenseman. Guy can score goals, got some miles on him. Pittsburgh looks like they're tearing the thing down, although Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin are still there. Pittsburgh is looking to make another deal, and Rickard Rakell, veteran who's kind of found a second stage of life in Pittsburgh, former Anaheim Ducks star. Rakell could be moved to somebody who wants to rent him. Carolina is the really weird one. They made a huge trade early in the middle of the season to get Mikko Rantanen, former 40-goal scorer. Rantanen's got 27 goals already this season. Carolina can't get him signed. Colorado, who had him, gave up on him because he was asking for more than $14 million, more than Nathan McKinnon, their star, was getting. That's why the Avs traded him to Carolina. Now there's a report that he's possibly going to move, and there's a report the Kings are interested in him, and the Kings are desperate for a goalkeeper. But would that be for just a couple of months rental, or are they going to get him to try to sign him? But the Kings' payroll is so staggeringly high. But if you get a chance to grab a guy that's a 40-goal scorer, guy's got 269 career goals, guy's got 27 goals this season, you have to pay a price to get him. But keep it. The Kings are in on the running with Rantanen in Carolina right now. And the last one is Boston. And Boston's made trades, but has not traded any of the marquee guys. And Boston's situation, would they trade Brad Marchand? That's hard to believe because he's kind of a fixture in Boston. Would you trade Plymouth Rock? That's the kind of player he is. But yet he's at the end of his contract, and there's no movement made to get him signed. So those are the marquee names. Trade deadline is at 12 noon West Coast time. We're not done. As I said, there were 43 trades last year leading up to and deadline day. We've had 24 as of noon today, but I'm sure there's more being announced. And obviously tomorrow at the deadline, there will be a flurry.
What are you hearing from the Winnipeg Jets? Are they looking for some players? Are they looking to make a deal?
Yeah, they've got some guys I think they've shopped, but that's a really good team. I do stuff in Winnipeg on their O Canada network. I do an NFL Notebook segment with Andrew Patterson, and they obviously they talk hockey all the time. Eat, breathe, sleep hockey all the time. And that's what they're doing now with that sucker's into overdrive. And I got into an argument with him on his show. I said, you guys need to back off. You guys in Winnipeg, you got a 43-win team. You got the best record in the league. And you're talking as if this thing is falling apart, and you're talking about trading this guy and trading that guy and that draft pick. Why would you mess with the chemistry with a team that's got the best overall record in the NHL? And I said, the other thing is, you got to pay attention here. You know, John Q. Fan on podcast, trade this guy. I don't give a crap. Trade that guy. Get rid of that draft. Well, you got to deal with the salary cap. Mm-hmm. You got to deal with how a big acquisition is going to impact the salary cap of the players you got to negotiate to re-sign, and what currency you're giving away. You're giving away other players, or you're going to give away future draft picks. I mean, making a trade in modern day sports with the cap is much more complicated than it used to be. But I was just bagging on them that you guys are trading the whole world. You got 43 wins. You're in first place. What the hell are you doing in Winnipeg?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's nice to see a team rise up and have that dominant regular season, but sometimes they get into the playoffs and then it's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they've got veterans, and these guys have been in the playoffs prior. So, I mean, I would have never imagined when we dropped the puck in early October that this team would be where this team, Winnipeg, is right now. Just spectacular. There should be more people across Canada talking about the Winnipeg Jets than the Edmonton Oilers, who just are really scuffling again because of their goaltending, or the chronically underachieving Toronto Maple Leafs, who just don't have goaltending and just they've had injury problems on top of it. NHL trading deadline. I mean, in Canada, trust me, you don't go to work, don't take a break for dinner. Sorry, no sex. We got to pay attention.
No sex.
Pay attention to what's going on in the NHL trading deadline. It's the most unique phenomena I've ever seen. And it's big here for those of us that cover hockey in the States. But in the old Canada network, holy cow, it's unbelievable.
Well, there's a lot going on in Canada these days.
Yes, there is.
Canada's in the news.
I told the guys in Winnipeg, you know what Trudeau should do? Trudeau should just announce Alaska really belongs to us because it's our neighbor to the north. So we'll just take Alaska back. And by the way, any of the states along the border, if you don't like where you are right now, you know, he's directing New Hampshire and upstate New York and Minnesota and
Montana,
the Dakotas and Montana. If you don't like it, come join us. So Canada should annex the northern part of the United States. How do you think that would go down? Make it a three-way trade and go to Greenland.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they need to do. They do a three-way.
So that's where we are. All things hockey. Hockey hotline. Chat box is open. Feel free to jump on board. We got so much to talk about. We're not done yet. John, let's move on. Next topic on the table. This involves hot headlines.
Yeah, hot headlines. And we're going to start with the San Diego State Aztecs. And that was a rough go in Vegas.
Tough. They lose in Vegas. Vegas hits 12 threes along the way. Aztecs got their brains beat out on the boards. We expected too much. I think Magoon Guath will be ready to play in the Mountain West Conference. They don't need him for this final game against Nevada Reno at home on Saturday, but hopefully you get him back and you have a week to practice leading up to Mountain West Conference play. But this is not the same San Diego State team that we've seen in years gone by because it's so young. That being said, though, when you realize that if you can keep Guath, which is going to be a challenge, and you're going to have Heidi back next season with your bigs. And then the fact that Nick Boyd's already announced he's coming back. Reese Waters out with a fractured foot is announced he's coming back with an extra redshirt year. You know, and you add in all the other young guys that got coming off the bench. This might be a program that a year from today is really, really going to be good because all these kids are kind of announcing they're coming back. If they can keep Guath from going somewhere else on a payday.
Yeah. I mean, it was a crazy events that went down in Vegas. Vegas was shooting out of their minds. The Aztecs had all that crazy travel coming from elevation in just a short window of time. And even Dutcher said the players looked a little fatigued on the court. But I'm not really worried about next year because there's still no guarantee they're going to be able to keep everybody. So just focus on this year, get Guath back, and I think they're going to be fine.
Okay, we go from that. The next one is what's going on with the PGA and the LIV. And these stories are coming an hour at a time. Rory McIlroy said there is absolutely no progress being made in the merger talks. He says this thing with LIV is just clogged up. You know, he says one thing. Tiger Woods, who was part of a 4-hour meeting with President Trump when he wasn't dropping tariffs on everybody's ass.
4 hours.
They met for 4 hours. He said a lot of progress was made. So I'm not sure what is the real truism, except we don't have a merger agreement and both sides are continuing to stagger. And then there was Freddie Couples. Freddie Couples, a retired golfing star, lives in Seattle, very active in the media. He went on and says, nobody's talking about this, but I'm going to talk about this. Brooks Koepka wants out of the LIV. He feels like he's gone to play and his career has disappeared off the radar. You think?
Yeah.
and then this, days later, comes a report that Bryson DeChambeau is threatening to leave because he was made promises about an upgraded contract and he had not gotten it. And in essence, where's my $200 million? Because he signed for one amount with some understanding, gentleman's agreement maybe with the Saudis, gentleman's agreement, it'd be bumped up to a $200 million deal. Now he's threatening. He wants to go. So what is the future of LIV? Dustin Johnson's disappeared. Has anybody heard from Phil Mickelson since he got the money? No. And now all of a sudden, Brooks Koepka and DeChambeau are talking about wanting to exit. So that's an amazing golf story. Are they coming apart at the seams? They're playing. You know where they're playing this week? What channel is it on?
I have no idea.
They're playing in Hong Kong. And when
wow.
you find out what channel it's on, please alert me because nobody's watching. This PGA LIV thing just nonstop, not making any progress. Soccer. This is quite a story. Manchester United, who once upon a time was elite and once upon a time was really special, is no longer. Manchester United's fallen on hard times. They're laying off tons of people. The day-to-day control of the franchise, they've lost like $200 million annually. And now this. Flash the next picture up. This is at a home game last week. Manchester United's fans are in utter revolt against the Glazer family. The Glazers own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL. They bought this thing, and they're of the opinion that the Glazers have run this thing into the ground, and they're living off the fans' loyalty, charging exorbitant prices for everything, and they're losing. I think their record was 8-12-7 as of last week. I mean, they're in the bottom third of the English Premier League. So the fans show up at the stadium, and what does that sign read?
Stop exploiting loyalty.
Yeah, exactly. That's the general consensus of what the Glazers are doing. Is they're taking in all this money, and now they're laying all these workers off in different levels of their organizations, their big business umbrella, and all they're doing is taking profits now. And the product on the field, it's nowhere near to what Man U used to be. So there's an implosion. There's something really bad coming at Manchester United. And then the final topic on the table, the whole world is expanding, right? Mm-hmm. You want to expand the NFL playoffs or Major League Baseball, whatever, mm-hmm. and we got the play-in crapola.
Well, I want the college football playoffs to be expanded.
Yeah, we got the whole bloody thing going on here. FIFA this morning indicated they have open talks amongst their inner circle about expanding the World Cup.
Hey.
Right. So you're really of the opinion we should expand the World Cup and maybe Iceland would win the World Cup if we let everybody in. You know, the World Cup was 32. This next World Cup is going to 48.
Right on.
FIFA has now been given a proposal to build the thing out to 64.
Cool.
Are there 64 global soccer powers out there you want to see in the tournament?
This is good news, because it's bringing the world together, you know, and yeah, Iceland may have a team. I mean, there's going to be some nations that are going to get bulldozed in the pool play, but the more you bring people together in the world of sports, you have less conflict in other areas of society. So I love it. I love getting all these people involved because the World Cup, I mean, really, that is the pinnacle of any sporting event on the planet.
Creme de la creme.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that John is a proponent of 62-7 playoff games in college football. That's what they let everybody in, even if it's 62-7. No, I don't think that's good.
Well, you'll get 62-7 when you have, who was it? Was it
SMU.
Was it SMU? No, TCU. It was TCU and Georgia. It was like a beatdown. So, just let them in, and have the tournament and have the game. I mean, why not?
There's 28 people live in Iceland. Iceland might beat Greenland, but you invite all these people to World Cup.
Well, there's a lot of nations. I mean, think about this. Like in the Americas, was it the last World Cup? America didn't make it, or was it the one before that? There are the legit teams, national teams that don't qualify, that just happen to have a bad run in their regional tournaments. So yeah, open it up. I mean, let's bring people together.
John's going to miss doing one of these podcasts because he'll have bought a ticket to go see Greenland play when the World Cup goes to 64 teams.
Well, I don't know if Greenland has enough people to field a team.
That's where we are. You want to react to the Aztecs, PGA versus LIV, all things soccer? I want you to jump on board. By the way, speaking of soccer, STFC, Chucky Lozano out. They did not say it was a torn hamstring, but he remains out indefinitely with this hamstring injury he suffered in the opener. So San Diego Football Club, MLS, a win and a tie. They go to Salt Lake City this weekend to play their third game of the season.
Yeah, no, hopefully it'll give the locals here in San Diego time to get organized so we don't have any more of that BS chants going on in San Diego.
It's a Mexican culture thing. I don't think you can stop that. I don't think you can police it. I'm not saying it's right. I think it's a Mexican culture thing that they seem to think they have a right to do, which I think is terrible.
Well, I think there's going to be enough peer pressure to kind of get that out. I mean, and even if they have to bring in security to pull people out of there. So hopefully they straighten it out.
So you're sitting next to me and you say it. You have no problem with me raising my hand and saying security. Sammy Slur guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to understand that, we have free speech in America, but you don't have the ability to say whatever you want in someone else's house.
Slur.
It's someone else's stadium. You can have rules on private property and you can eject people for saying things that are disapproved.
All those are the topics on the table. It's your chance to join us now. Fans Forum chat box is open. This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, they've got materials. You want ideas, they can be your best friend. And don't forget the DeWalt tool display. It's absolutely unbelievable. And don't forget their showroom, which is amazing too in terms of how they lay things out and things they can offer you. Go to Dixieline.com for all the details. John? Yeah, we got people lined up here with opinions about me or opinions about you or opinions about Greenland and Iceland. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go to our friend Matt. Matt is always a good guy. He gives us a couple of bucks every time. And this is, you pay money, you get to the front of the line. Matthew says, hey, Jeannie's comments are smart. She has play-by-play ball she has to play ball with the other 29 owners. She can't say she fleeced them. Dr. Buss understood this. He taught well.
Well, Dr. Buss was bold. Of course, a lot of Jerry Buss's accomplishments were prior to anything that relates to a salary cap and salary cap aprons and limitations, etc. But the Lakers have been running in sand for a long time. And even though they're hot right now, and you can be excited at this 12 wins in 14 games, let's understand Jeannie Buss has mismanaged this thing dating back to when Phil Jackson was there. And they had all types of internal problems. And then post-Kobe Shaq, it's not been a great franchise. So going forward, I guess you can put your hand up and say, I think I'm going to order playoff tickets, and they will be in the playoffs. But how deep they go remains to be seen. And they still got games during this rest of this regular season against some pretty good basketball teams. I guess, and I got into a discussion at the fitness center that I work out every morning. And there's basketball junkies all over the place there. And we got into this discussion about Lakers, what they've accomplished, And I said, just answer me one question. Do you compare the Lakers right now to the best team in the league, the Cleveland Cavaliers? Do the Lakers have enough athletes to compete against Oklahoma City? Are the Lakers equal to last year's champion, the Boston Celtics? End of discussion.
I love hearing the stories of Hacksaw in the wild, out amongst the people and hosting talk shows on street corners. This is fantastic. But you say the Lakers have been down, but the Lakers won in the COVID year, right? I mean, are we going to say that's an asterisk and kind of downplay it like when the Dodgers won?
That was not an 80-game schedule, pal.
No, it wasn't. No.
We'll see. I mean, obviously, everybody's upbeat about what Laker basketball has become. And there's no doubt that Luka's a great player. And it was intriguing to me to see how Luka and LeBron coexisted. Who ran the offense? Well, the offense is going through Doncic right now. So let's just see how deep they go. But at the end of the day, are they equal to Boston, Cleveland, or those two young gun rosters that we've talked about? Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen. Okay. Want to keep moving on? Okay. Matthew's got a few more, but I'm going to intersperse them later. But Matthew's a good man. He kind of helps us out. Let's go here to Royal Sports. He goes, Lee, very disappointed in you wearing an Oilers hoodie rather than a Jets after all that Andrew and Michael have done for you.
I have contributed to Winnipeg Sports Talk on a regular basis for probably 5 to 7 years. Those guys are doing great up there. And yes, I did talk down to them when we were talking about why the hell are you trying to make all these trades in Winnipeg? I do have a Jets hoodie. Maybe for the playoffs, I will wear my Winnipeg Jets hoodie. So, hey.
You've been talking about that Winnipeg Jets hoodie since we started this podcast. I don't think I've ever seen it.
I've got it. I'm sure. All I know is this was in the closet. It was clean when I put it on.
I think it was on the top of the pile, right?
Probably. Exactly. We got more hoodies than I have good-looking clothes. Winnipeg, Royal Sports, you guys are great. Thanks for joining us, man.
Okay, let's go here to Carlos. He goes, Lee, how can the LA Kings improve via trade for the playoff run?
Well, this story coming out of Carolina in the last 4 hours that they have made a call to the Carolina Panthers, and they're actually really taking a hard look at this 40-goal scorer that Carolina can't get re-signed. But I will tell you, getting Rantanen out of Carolina is going to be pricey. Are you going to auction off all your first-round picks, or you're going to trade some of your younger players? How do you get them at what price? And are you running a risk if you overpay to get Rantanen now and you can't re-sign him? What the hell happens to your team? Now you've traded all these assets away and you got him for a couple of months to try to go deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs. They need goal scoring. Their goal scoring has really disappeared. So Rob Blake's got his hands full here. They have always been active. Rob has been proactive in terms of player acquisitions, offseason and at the trade deadline. So I would assume they're going to do something, but I don't know if Rantanen is the right guy just because the price you have to pay. There's no doubt he's a great player. 269 career goals, 40 goals last year, 20, I think he's got 29 this year. Wow. Big price.
Well, we're still about 24 hours or so, maybe 22 hours away from the deadline.
12 noon Friday.
Tomorrow. Yeah, okay. So what are the big names that you think are going to drop in the next 24 hours?
Well, we just ran through them on the segment. At one point I thought John Gibson was going to be traded, and then the Ducks goaltender got hurt last night. Brad Marchand. If Boston traded Brad Marchand, that's a terrible sign to Bruins fans that era is over. But again, he's a walk free agent. Are you going to trade the house to get him as a difference maker on your team fighting for a playoff spot with the risk you might lose him July 1st when he becomes a free agent? Brock Nelson, very good defenseman, New York Islanders. He's available out there. Obviously, Rantanen is the marquee name. What kind of message does it send to the fans in Vancouver if you trade your former 40-goal scorer Brock Besser while you're fighting to stay in the playoff race? Edmonton's got resources. Edmonton's trying to make a deal. Evander Kane is out there on the trade block in Edmonton, but he's hurt. But that would be a salary cap move. I'm moving him. You can get him on an expiring contract going forward. Rickard Rakell, I think, is very, very much a guy who's going to move out of Pittsburgh because he can score goals and he's got a more affordable contract. And the weird one is the goaltender in St. Louis. I don't know where Jordan Binnington is as to why he's being shopped after the great success he had in the Four Nations tournament. But the Blues are shopping him too. So, and there are teams that need goaltending. So those are the marquee names. Like I say, coming into the show today, there'd already been 24 trades made in the league, including 8 in the last 28 hours. So there's more tonight. Check my website first thing tomorrow, and obviously deadline at 12 noon tomorrow.
Well, last year, what was the number of trades? It was
43.
Yeah, it was a big number.
Oh, all-time record.
I mean, your script notes, you're running out of ink on your pen.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you for joining us on the Hockey Hotline. You stay tuned. We'll continue to talk about it.
Okay, let's get Matthew back in the list here. And he says, Yoshi throwing before Yaki made me see that Roki is better than Yoshi.
Well, I think they're both great. Now, Yoshi had an unbelievably dominant first spring training start. Second start got banged around a little bit, but that's okay. It's spring training. Sasaki was just dominant. Now we'll see how he does in the second one and how his body comes back. Because Dave Roberts said that was a max effort thing that he saw from Sasaki in that first exhibition game. I was amazed. I let him throw 3 innings, but he's been throwing bullpens and throwing on back fields for weeks. So they felt he was ready to be able to get to 3 innings. So, hey, 2 weeks from now, Dodgers Cubs. Should I warn them now that I might wear my Dodger hoodie that week? But Sasaki, Yamamoto, they're going to start the 2 games against the Cubs over there in Tokyo. I think it's the 23rd, 24th. So that's going to be fun.
Don't you think, though, that Sasaki's a young kid? He was in the news, and he just probably said, man, this is my first time. I'm going for it.
He was amped.
I'm going to prove that I'm legit. I'm going to prove I belong. And he proved it. I mean, so good for him. But freaking the Dodgers are just so loaded in every position.
Yeah, and Clayton Kershaw's out there doing hardball long toss at full velocity in the outfield and throwing bullpens. But he says there's no rush. With this roster, there's no rush. They're projecting him on June 1st. And we don't know whether Dustin May is going to start or whether he'll be in the bullpen. But so far, his 2 starts have been pretty decent in terms of stuff. Gonzalez has yet to give up a run. He's coming off surgery. Dodgers are just really deep.
Imagine when they make their final cuts. I mean, there's going to be some big names on that list.
Yeah, a bunch of them are on the DL now. A couple have options who will go back to Oklahoma City, and then maybe somebody else gets hurt and winds up on the disabled list, or somebody winds up getting traded. To quote John, anytime we have this topic on the table, Dodgers, Dodgers, Dodgers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to have the right tone of voice, though. It's like Dodgers, Dodgers, Dodgers.
All right, next one. Thanks for being with us, Matt.
Let's go to John. He goes, is Joey Bosa the next Charger who finally gets his Super Bowl ring by going to a new team?
He'll be a bargain. Now, he's not going to get $25 million. He's going to wind up with a contract really early, I think, in this process. And on the right type of defense, that's a pretty dangerous guy. And if he wants to win, hell, I could see him going to the Detroit Lions on an affordable contract, not $25 million. But he's going to get action from lots of places. I would assume, John, he would pick a team that's right there on the brink of being Super Bowl. He's not going to the New York Football Giants, or I don't think to the New York Jets. So interesting to see. But he's got to stay on the field. He's got to stay healthy, and that was obviously the big issue here.
Well, I'm trying to think of the Chargers that have won Super Bowl rings that after they left. And I mean, Seau and Rodney Harrison are the obvious ones. Who are some of the other names?
Oh, that's a good question.
Fred Dean, maybe?
But that was way before Super Bowls, I think, were played.
No, Fred Dean was like the early 80s or the late 70s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good question.
But there's a list. I mean, and we can make a list of Padres that have left and gone on to win World Series rings too.
Yeah. It was interesting. I asked a mini poll question last night on my website. Greatest pass rusher of all time, defensive lineman pass rusher. Because Bosa's second all time in Charger sacks, and to me, the best one. He never got any true global national recognition. Was Leslie O'Neal. He was big and he was physical. And he was a strong side guy. And he's the all-time leading sack artist with the Chargers. Bosa was second. And Lee Williams, the big cat, who was a pass rusher when I was there, when I first came as a voice of the Chargers. And he gave him 4 or 5 really good years, had a knee injury, and then he got traded and his career never, ever evolved. Lee Williams is third, I think, on the pass rush list of pass rushers. That doesn't include the Seaus of the world. But, yeah, Bosa was good. It just didn't pan out. So he'll go somewhere. I don't know if they've been talking about he might line up with his brother, but how many big money guys named Bosa can the 49ers have on their salary cap?
Yeah, I mean, they're clearing some space. Now they got rid of Samuel. But you think of the most ferocious pass rushers. I mean, immediately Lawrence Taylor comes to mind, but he's not a defensive lineman. But you know what I was just thinking about is, remember Mark Gastineau?
Sure.
From the Jets? I mean, he had a nice little run there.
Yeah, he was a really good player. He was a steroid-driven guy.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh, yeah, what was the nickname of that group? The Sack Exchange.
Yeah, that's right.
Sack Exchange, New York Giants.
So there's a Jets.
Jets.
Yeah.
Him, Joe Klecko. I mean, there were 4 really great pass rush guys together.
Mm-hmm.
A few of those guys had screws loose too. Holy cow.
Well,
Yeah, I guess it was a problem. Okay, thanks for the input, John.
Okay, we're weaving Matthew in here near the top of the list. Let's go back to Matt. He says, guys, Lakers are the 2nd seed and the best record since January.
They are. But I'm not going to admit that I said anything wrong because there's still the rest of the schedule to be played. But if they finish up, if they roar through and beat some of these other people the way they're beating up the have-nots, then I'll say, hey, nah, I wasn't wrong. We'll see what the playoffs are like. But, hey, they're good. Enjoy it. This is really kind of cool how Luka and LeBron have been able to coexist.
Yeah, but do they have like a center? I mean, do they just like have nobody in the paint? They're just hitting threes and...
No, Jackson Hayes and those guys will score 5 points a game. But this, they and Jared Vanderbilt in postseason play, you think those guys even show up if they have to play Boston in the playoffs?
Yeah, or like someone like Jokic is just going to run over them.
I would think so.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's still games to be played and some really good teams left on the schedule. But this has been fun. This has happened at a lot quicker pace, Luka LeBron, than I ever thought it would.
I agree. I'm surprised.
You agree with me? What the hell's wrong with you?
Well, and it's kind of cool having Luka in Southern California because I'm getting to learn about it more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to Emmanuel. He says, I'm glad that Stafford stayed in Los Angeles. Also happy to see Matthew Stafford giving new football uniforms to my alma mater, Pasadena High School.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw the video last night on X. It was really impressive. Stafford and his wife showed up at this awards ceremony at Pasadena High School, and he financed football uniforms for the entire football program. He's such a cool guy. Not just as a player, not just as a leader, but what he does in his communities. I mean, it is absolutely stunning who Matthew Stafford is and what he represents, not just as a Rams quarterback, as a player, what he represents as a person. I mean, he's just unique human being.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the more I've learned about him, the more I really like him because when he was in Detroit, as far as I was concerned, he had fallen off the face of the earth.
No, but he did the exact same thing in the inner cities in Detroit. He's an amazing human being.
That's what I had heard, so it's special to have him here. I'm glad he's back. But, I get a ton of Matthew Stafford on my TV for like him and his wife are in bed in a mattress commercial,
sure.
But yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving. And we're going to go here to, Jason. He says, Joey Bosa, last San Diego Charger. Kind of sad to think about it.
Yeah, but, that's been 7 years now since they left. Of course, as I said, not really the last San Diego Charger. The last Charger should be the Spanos family. Yeah, and I think a lot of people like to see them leave too.
Well, yeah, Jason has the follow-up here. He says, Spanos, the last San Diego Charger? Did you really just say that, Saw? Ugh.
Well, they owned it here. They own it up there. They've had, I think the number is they've owned the franchise 37 years. They've had 17 winning seasons in 37 years. 1 Super Bowl appearance. 17 winning seasons in 37 years.
That ain't good. I mean, I just remember, this is before Spanos, but remember in the late 70s and early 80s?
Gene Klein. That
was an electric team. And that was right when the 49ers were starting to become good. And there was a chance that they were going to meet in that Super Bowl in 1982. But I think it was that Ice Bowl or whatever.
Cincinnati.
Yeah. But I mean, if you go back to that Chargers roster back in that glory days, I mean, it's a really remarkable.
Yeah, that was before I got here. I got here just as the rebuilding was about to begin. Dan Fouts was the last one standing. That was his last year was my first year, and he had nothing around him, which is really hard to watch. And then he decided to retire and go into broadcasting. Gene Klein, he was a hell of an owner, players owner. Now, he was involved in a lot of wars. He was involved with agents. And he fought with players who held out. Fouts held out. John Jefferson held out. Klein had a heart attack testifying in the Al Davis lawsuit about the move to L.A. It was really bad. But he was a very successful, very popular owner. And that was what a small chunk of time. That 5-year window under Air Coryell was just absolutely amazing.
Well, why did Klein sell the team?
I think age and health more than anything else. And okay. I think he was tired of the problems. He had a lot of conflicts with Howard Slusher, who was the agent of the Stars. Howard Slusher was to the NFL what Scott Boras is right now. You get a lot of heartburn dealing with that all the time.
Right.
And he got dinged. His players held out. That was just bitter stuff. That was That was in the early 80s. I got here in 87 and all that had passed by the boards. Klein, people that I know who played for Klein, work for Klein's, hell of a guy.
Yeah, the late 80s was a rough time for the Chargers. And I remember going to, because you couldn't watch the game on TV.
No, so it was sold out.
Unless it was sold out. And then even sometimes it was hard to get, with home games, unless it was sold out. I would go to this bar in Leucadia and I would be able to watch the games because I was living in Encinitas at the time. But it's cool that you were here, kind of during a down period for the Chargers, but then saw them rise up and get all the way to the Super Bowl.
The journey to be great is something you never, ever forget. I hardly ever think about Steve Young's 6 touchdown passes, 49ers blowout win over the Chargers. When I think of Chargers Super Bowl win, I think about, wow, what a cool experience that was to be part of it and to see a bad team get better and better. And then all of a sudden it just happened, and to see it come together, that journey, that to me was more impressive than getting to the Super Bowl and having Steve Young throw 6 touchdown passes.
Now, were you broadcasting for the Chargers when they had the strike and they had the replacement players?
Yeah, that was my first year.
First year? Really?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It was pretty ugly because we had a bunch of really union activist guys. Every freaking linebacker was a radical on the Chargers. And they knew this lockout, it was 1987, was going to happen. And it happened after I think it was the 3rd week of the season. And they shut the thing down. They canceled week 4. Everybody brought all these street free agents in. And I'll say one thing, Steve Whitmire, who was then the general manager, he knew all these players who were periphery fringe players, but he got them all collected to come. And the Chargers went 3-0 with the replacement Charger team. 3-0, and 2 of them were on the road. We won in Tampa Bay in a rainstorm. We won in Cincinnati in a really ugly incident. And then we beat the Raiders up in L.A. Beat Al Davis. Our scabs are better than your scabs. Or I should say your criminals.
Were there any names on the Charger roster that you remembered from playing pro ball or playing in college?
Yeah, Rick Neuheisel was the quarterback.
Oh, he was?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I mean, it was a bit controversial. The Chargers went 3-0 with the replacement players. Then they settled the strike and everybody came back in. The Chargers kept 16 of the guys from the replacement team. 16. That locker room was a little dicey early on. Fouts and those guys, there are a lot of radical union guys. I said, you're bringing these strike breakers in and they're putting them on our roster. But the thing was, the Chargers were hot. They were 8-1 out of the gate my first year. Fouts was playing well, and it just really came together. And then Fouts got dinged, and we lost 6 in a row at the end. It was over.
What a first year for you.
We finished up 8-7. But I covered the picket lines. Holy cow, you talk about nasty stuff. And one of the players, they would practice at the practice field down at the edge of the parking lot at Qualcomm Stadium. And everybody would park in the players' lot. And all the replacements came back one day, and they all had flat tires. Well, where do you think that hat came from? They didn't all drive over the same nail. That was members of the Chargers who were carrying picket signs outside the practice field, call them scabs, going back up and puncturing their tires.
It reminds me of that Keanu Reeves, Gene Hackman movie.
That's right.
The replacements, because they were didn't they flip over Keanu Reeves' pickup truck in the parking lot?
Yeah, it was a lot of nasty stuff that went on there. And we played the second replacement game was in Cincinnati against Mike Brown's Bengals. And Cincinnati is kind of a big union town. Well, what they did was the union brought in all these picket guys from Pittsburgh. So we had all these coal miners and steel workers who were standing outside Riverfront Stadium with placards and stuff. The Chargers were terrified there was going to be an incident. So we went to the stadium in a different route and came in a back way underneath because they were afraid that these radical union guys are going to raise hell about the scabs, the guys crossing the picket line to play for the replacement Charger team. So they were really worried about that. That was the second week. And Pittsburgh had the same when the Steelers played, same exact thing, because that's big union country, big Steeler fans.
Do you think there's ever going to be another lockout in the NFL?
No, because everybody's making so much money. They'll find a way. There should, flipping topics here just real quickly, a lot of conversation about a lockout in baseball. after 26.
Hmm.
Why would you lock out when everybody's making money? TV contracts are an all-time high, attendance all-time high, ratings all-time high. Don't sit there and fire negatives at the other side. Don't sit there and threaten. Just go to the table and find a middle ground here. Don't do anything to damage the game. The game has roared back in terms of popularity. I'll guarantee you, you ask Padre fans, they don't want to see a lockout in 27. You know, they've got 2 years. They got 25 and 26 to negotiate a new CBA, which might involve a cap or might involve different luxury tax rules, should involve a floor to spending. Did you get my memo that I sent to Tony Clark?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll get a Christmas card from Tony Clark again. But you got 2 years to negotiate it. Don't sit there and fire shots at the other guy. Come to the table because everybody's doing so well in baseball. Just there's got to be a rearrangement of the spending of the money. And I salute Tony Clark for ripping the crap out of Arte Moreno. That's fine. Now, you make sure you do it in Miami, you do it in Tampa Bay, you do it to the owner in Pittsburgh, you do it to the guy with the A's. Let's make sure you fire the gunshot at everybody that's nickel and diming their fans and not putting a good product on the field. Am I right or am I right?
Well, I think you're right. Absolutely. But, you know, if MLB attempted a lockout in 2027, that's still during Donald Trump's term. He's the art of the deal. He's going to come and solve the problem. I alone can fix it, just like he's doing with the LIV and PGA.
Has that been solved yet? Did I miss that memo?
He was in the 4-hour meeting.
Did that include the resolution of the tariff things that he just rescinded? You told me we were not going to talk politics on my podcast.
We were talking about deal making.
Oh,
okay,
geez.
let's keep moving here. Let's go to Flegel. And he says, John Q here. I had no idea hockey could be as awesome until my daughter showed me. I'm retired now, but we watched the final U.S.-Canada game together. Goaltending made all the difference as far as I could tell. Jared Binnington was awesome.
You know what the interesting story, the side story there, I don't know if you've heard Matthew Tkachuk, the star, Team USA, torn groin, gone for the year. Florida just lost their captain. And there have been 8 players who had major injuries in the Four Nations tournament. Only one of them, Brady Tkachuk, is the only one that's come back as totally healthy. 7 guys are still out with injuries. So the tournament was phenomenal, but boy, there's a risk involved. There's a price to pay. And now you got Florida here losing Matthew Tkachuk. Big blow.
I'll bet you, though, if you ask every one of those players that got hurt, they'd do the same thing all over again.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because they're out there representing their nation, and that tournament was so electric. Everyone was excited about it. I mean, it's bad luck, but, you know, and I'm glad Flegel getting turned on to hockey, just like I am. So good for you getting your daughter.
Flegel, when the playoffs begin, I guarantee you're going to get mesmerized by watching these best-of-7 series. They take that competition level to another level when the postseason begins in April. I mean, it's kind of really unique. We move on.
Okay, let's go here to Gordon. He goes, hi, Lee and John from Gusty and Dusty Las Cruces. A different question for you. Why does minor league Class A baseball have only 2 umpires? Is it all about money? Thanks again. Great show.
It is economics. Yeah, exactly. It's all driven. I mean, AAA umpiring is different than AA or Class A, et cetera. And again, you've got to be able to get these guys to be able to give up whatever other careers they have if they're going to just operate and umpire AA games or Class A games. So it's all economically driven.
I remember like 10 years ago, I was the president of Poway National Little League. Can you believe that? And we had a controversy where the parents wanted to have 2 umpires on the field rather than just 1. And it was a big controversy. And it is economics. I mean, it makes a big difference. So, but this level here at Class A, you still think that all that revenue from the major league teams, they could at least get 4 umpires. You don't need to have umpires down the left field and right field line like you do in the World Series.
Yeah, but how many games are there in the Florida State League Class A ball every night? 8, 10. So if you're talking 2 umpires a game, that's 20. Your theory is 4 umpires a game in the Florida State League Class A ball. That's 40 umpires a night. Cost factor is unbelievable.
Well, it adds up, but I mean that's like a speck of sand in the beach when it compared to Juan Soto's contract. So I mean, even if you look at basketball, it's still 3 refs in the NBA as it is in college ball, right? It's not like they skimp and only go with 2.
Lower minor leagues. That's the economics is what drives all that. Good question, though. Thanks, Gord.
Okay, let's go here to foul play. Rob, World Baseball Classic favorites?
Anything that's related to Japan probably has to get strong consideration. I haven't paid any attention to World Baseball Classic. I mean, it's novel. Obviously, the Caribbean teams are just phenomenal because of how many great players they have. And, Team USA should be there. Injuries have something to do with it. They've never, to me, as cool as it's been, and I've been down there on the field. I took part in all the press conferences with Joe Torre and all those people. And it's such a neat aura. But they've never configured, John, what's the proper place to put it? You put it at the beginning of the season, but what about the injury risk? Are your pitchers ready for that level of competition? You can't put it at the end of the season post-World Series because then it's mid-November, late November, where you're going to play it in cold weather. And you don't want to, I don't think they want to eradicate the All-Star game or have a 2-week window time off. It's a tough place to place it just because of the scheduling.
Well, hockey figured it out, right? They
this one time, yes.
They did it mid-season, and it gives guys an extended break for a week or 2 that aren't on the teams. Doing the World Baseball Classic in March is too early. I mean, it didn't make sense. But I'll tell you what, I went to Petco with my son and some of his buddies for the 2017 game, USA versus Dominican Republic. And that was the one where Adam Jones robbed that home run in center field from Manny Machado. That was like watching an all-star game. There was so much major league talent on the field. It was an electric atmosphere with all the drums and everything else going on in the stadium. I loved every minute of it. But yeah, when's the next World Baseball Classic? It's
this year.
Yeah, because I went in 2017, and then I think they were going to do it in 21, but wasn't there a problem because of COVID? So I'm not sure when the next one is.
It might be 28, something like that. I haven't heard anything about it recently, but they've just never found a fixed position. And to this day, they still don't know what's the right window on the baseball calendar to do it. And it's a very, very complex thing. Unless if you're going to have the Classic, maybe shorten the season from 162 to 154 that given year. And then you find a place to put it in the middle of the season. Maybe you do it during make the All-Star break a 2-week thing with a 154-game schedule and play the Classic in there.
Okay, just for that 1 year, that could make sense. Maybe the owners be willing to give a little on that.
Nah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay,
let's go here to Al, and he says, hey, it's okay with me, a Jet fan.
Okay, what's he making reference to?
I don't know. Well, I think we're talking about the Winnipeg
fans.
Winnipeg
Jets.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For some reason now.
We were talking about Mark Gastineau.
Yeah, earlier. I got so much Aaron Rodgers on my brain.
Yeah.
Winnipeg's got pieces they could move, but man, I don't want to disrupt team chemistry. That's a really good hockey team that they got up there in the old Canada Network, but we'll see. But salary cap comes into the play here because, I mean, there's a lot of these teams are really capped out, and it's a big, big issue. Friday, 12 noon. Holy cow. Don't go out for lunch. You're going to miss something. It's great. It is just so great. This coolest thing, one of the sports websites out of Canada, it's called TSN.ca. They have what's called a trade tracker. And they pop the deals on just as they're being announced. It is just fascinating to follow that. And it just, trade deadline might end at noon. That trade tracker keeps running until 12:15, till 12:30, 12:45, because the trades have to be approved by the league office, and then they're formally announced. They got all the stuff. If you're a hockey freak, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's kind of like the sports ticker, you know?
Exactly.
It's like I think of the old stock market tickers. And I'll say this too, is, we're talking about Winnipeg. I've been to Eastern Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Quebec, Nova Scotia. I've been to British Columbia, and it's wonderful, but I've never been into any of those middle provinces. I mean, you've been there.
It's called the prairies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta. It's like driving across the state of Texas. You can see forever because it's flat as hell, and it's colder than hell.
You remember your old buddy Jim Rome when he was doing the world tour, when he was doing his show. I remember he went to Omaha because that was one of his first
network affiliates.
Network affiliates. And he says, in Omaha, you could stand on a beer can and see 100 miles.
Yep. That's what Saskatchewan is, and that's what southern Alberta and Manitoba is. Now up north, you get into the Canadian Rocky parts of Alberta, which is absolutely beautiful. You never been to Banff?
No.
What the hell's wrong with you?
I got to get out, man. I got to go check it out.
You need to get out of the house once in a while.
Well, I got to do it in the summertime, I think.
No. Oh, skis, pal.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, Banff Springs Hotel. The old Canada Network knows what the hell I'm talking about. Vancouver's a great city. It's so cosmopolitan.
Oh, I love Vancouver.
Yeah.
I felt it felt a lot like San Francisco to me.
And I went to Eastern Canada. I went to the Canadian Maritimes because my wife's family was there from Nova Scotia. And that's cool. And again, I grew up on the ocean. I grew up on Long Island. So going to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, standing on the rocks, watching the Atlantic come in, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Little barren. Economics are not quite the same. It's different. But old Canada, not a bad place.
Okay, let's keep moving. And here, Rubber Toad chimes in. He goes, the WBC is next year, every 3 years.
Well, when you can figure where's the best place on the calendar to put it, please call me, because they're still searching. They can't figure it out. And, they put it early last year, and there were a lot of pitchers that had health issues, including Yu Darvish of the Padres. So it's just got to be a lot more dialogue about that. All right, next one.
Okay, go to KC, and he says, what Padre player can cover center field? Hayward, Lockridge?
Did Jackson Merrill leave? Hayward is of the opinion that he's going to split between center and right. Now, he's been playing some left in spring training, but the bulk of his life has been in center and right, and I think you probably keep him there. But Jackson Merrill's not coming out of the bloody lineup at all. Now, they may give these guys blows, and then Hayward would play if Merrill was a DH, et cetera, et cetera. But we're halfway through spring training, and they have to configure who's my left fielder. They have to make a choice who's the starting catcher. Somebody's got to hit. Help wanted sign is out. Find me a bat, because right now most of those guys are not hitting.
Well, KC jumped in here. He had a little follow-up. He goes, if Merrill needs a day off.
Concur.
Yeah, and so I think it's Hayward. I don't think Lockridge makes this team, because I think Hayward, I was surprised because I thought it was going to be Hayward and Joe platooning in left or something like that, but they're going to use these guys in different ways.
Well, and the fact that Ornelas has just hit the heck out of the ball, and Ornelas has kind of played his way into the left field thing. But that being said, 'tis March, not opening day. And opening day, they start throwing Old Charlie. And opening day, they start throwing the cutters. And then the guys who are hitting well in the spring might be going back to El Paso once they start doing this other stuff.
I want to get one more in here from Flegel because I really liked it. He said, I'm a Dodger fan from 1969, guys. Mock me if you like. I can take it.
You will take it.
Yeah, the late 60s was a glory era for the Dodgers, but when they got into the late 60s, maybe not as much, right? Because it was the early to mid 60s when they did well.
I think they've always been a legacy franchise forever and ever. They're outside of the era of Frank McCourt, that bankrupt owner of bankrupt morals. Dodgers have been a great franchise. They've been a flagship of Major League Baseball. Classy. Different than Steinbrenner's evil empire, but now they've had so many great years, and we're going through this has been a great decade. There may be a lot of non-believers of Dave Roberts, but what Dodger baseball has been in the last decade is spectacular. His 1-loss record over his almost 10 years of managing is the best in the history of Dodger baseball, and that Dodger baseball includes Walter Smokey Alston and all those great teams that you're alluding to, and then Lasorda.
Yeah.
His numbers, Dave Roberts' numbers, are better than either of those guys. And those guys are icons.
And then Dodger fan wanted to fire Dave Roberts just a year or two ago.
Multiple times.
Yeah. But, I started following the Dodgers in the 70s because that's when I was a kid and I was following the Giants, and the Dodgers, of course, were loaded. They had that famous infield. But, if you look on the back of it, like Steve Garvey's baseball card, I think he was a rookie like in the late 60s, so.
Well, those guys, that whole infield kind of came up simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then they were in the World Series against the A's. What was that? Was that in 73, I think? So that was Flegel got on board with the Dodgers. That was a great time to join the party.
Flegel, opening week of the season. I'll wear my Dodger hoodie if you wear yours. Then we get yelled at together.
Okay, let's get some social media people here involved. And where do we want to start here? Let's talk a little NHL trade deadline. Stephen Phillips, he says, Kane wants to come back near the end of the season. It seems like every other team has their players out for the whole season to help their caps.
Exactly. And that's a problem, is that if he comes back, that impacts Edmonton's cap. If he elected to sit out the entire season, they would get cap relief, and you could trade his expiring contract to somebody else who would give them cap relief. You know, Kane, he's talking about Evander Kane, has been very controversial over the course of his career. He's been involved in so much junk off the ice, and I'm still surprised he's got the kind of contract that he has. He's been productive, but he's not been the superstar that I think many people imagined when I think he started in San Jose, but he's had so much crap off the ice that I'm still surprised that people still want to do business with him. But he had a sports hernia surgery. He was hurt at the end of last season, so he's still in that limbo area on long-term IR. If he stays on long-term IR, Edmonton could move the contract, but if he wants to come back and play, then that prohibits the potential of a deal. And who wants to take on this player, this problem, who's been out all season long too?
So I've never heard of this dynamic. So you can take a player that's on your roster and put them on long-term IR, and then it doesn't count towards the salary cap?
Yes, you get some form of discount. Yeah, exactly.
And
but he has to be out for an extended period. You can't hide him there.
Right.
It's got to be approved that he's on long-term IR for this injury.
And it has to be a legit injury.
Yep.
But then you would think that if it didn't count for the salary cap, that he would be ineligible for the whole season, including the playoffs.
No, you can bring him back, but then it hurts your cap when you bring him back.
Oh, they probably get the full impact of the salary when they bring him back.
No, right? I think it's prorated, but you still get dinged.
Yeah.
Yeah. His cap number is, I don't know, 5.9 or something.
But that must be unique to the NHL, because I've never heard of this in other sports.
Yep. There's a lot of unique things in Canada, trust me.
Okay, let's keep moving and talk a little Dodgers-Padres smack with Sheepdog's Heart. He says, he was talking about the Dodgers credit card bill, all the guys on deferral. Hey, more like a prepaid credit card, so no worries down the road. But thanks for exemplifying San Diego fans are still failing to grasp how far behind the Dodgers they are on every level.
Well, Padre fans, they're always optimistic about their team, and it's been a pretty good team for a group of years. But that being said, if I say this, will I get yelled at? The baseball season is about to be open. The Dodger Invitational season is about to be open.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Unless the Dodgers completely fall off the map and everybody winds up on the disabled list, that's still a pretty good Dodger team. And the Padres are a good team, but the Padres are not equal to them. I've taken so much heat for listing the top starting rotations in baseball, and I had the Padres with the fifth best.
Mm-hmm.
People just banging on me because I did the same thing. I took the board that we built and I used it on KUSI on Saturday mornings, and I do my sports package there. And people said, "You're crazy." I said, "They got a top 5 starting rotation." No, I'm not saying it's the best pitching staff in baseball. I said, but there's 30 teams in baseball, and there's 25 others that aren't equal to what these guys have, and these guys are ranked 5th in my estimation. Why? People just jumping up and down.
Well, I mean, the top 3 are fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael King showed yesterday in his spring training debut. So did Pivetta. Darvish is going to be great. And you know, when the Padres added Pivetta, you're like, okay, we have a solid guy in that number 4 spot. And he's not going to light the world on fire, but compared to other starting rotations,
yeah.
I mean, do you want to be the Colorado Rockies pitching staff? I mean, or the St. Louis Cardinals? I mean, none of these are as good as the Padres. We just have unrealistic expectations because we're always comparing with the Dodgers.
Dodgers.
Yeah.
Move on.
Okay, let's go here to Nathan Perry, Drunk Reflex, talking about the instant replay in the NFL. He goes, the NFL needs to take a page out of NHL's playbook. It still needs a little work, but all major penalties called on the ice are now reviewed to make sure they get it right. All high-sticking calls are double-checked if an offending player caused actual damage to the other player, which determines if this is a regular 2-minute or a 4-minute double minor. You're right. If you can use replay to change a ball spot, you can use it for a missed face mask.
Get it right. And if there's a mistake, get it right through the use of replay. The thing that I don't agree with, they use replay right now in an advisory capacity. I'll look at this on replay up on the booth, and I will Message down to you, John.
Mhm.
Pick up the flag. You made a mistake. Okay. Well, they can do that. The next step should be, I'm going to message John. That pass rusher hit that quarterback right in the face mask or yanked it from the side. Throw a flag. They have not approved that aspect of a replay challenge or assistance in the replay booth. Why not? If you're picking up a flag because it was a wrong call, throw a flag if it was a missed call. Yes or yes?
Yeah, like you say, get it right. But you see this in other sports too, where they'll say, well, that kind of penalty is non-reviewable. And you're like, well, what the hell? I mean, if the whole objective here is to get it right, why would you make certain plays ineligible?
Exactly. Major plays. I don't want to stoppage every time there's a snap. You don't want to get there. And it's the same thing with baseball and the robo-ump and the ABS system. We don't want to stop the game because everybody's doing this.
Yeah, but there's if they do it right, there's a limit on how many times you can throw that flag for the challenge. Yeah, let me just get it right.
Okay, move on. We got a couple more social media. I think I'm going to get slammed here on one of these.
Let's go to Pete Rose for Hacksaw. And this is from Norbert. And he goes, he's quoting you. Rip Pete Rose, wherever the hell you are.
Oh, here we go.
You call yourself a Catholic? I've listened to you for 30 years, Lee. You sound like a bitter, myopic, sanctimonious boomer these days. Lent starts tomorrow, Hack. Maybe give up your anger and TDS this year.
I'm not angry. I'm just expressing opinions. I know a lot about Pete Rose. I dealt with Pete Rose. Pete Rose was a great player. Pete Rose was not a great person. So, if the only thing that you draw a conclusion on is 4,256 hits or whatever the mystical number was, that's great. But I understand Pete Rose, who he was and all the flaws that he had, in addition to being a fine baseball player. I think you can't write the history of baseball and the success of the game without his input into the success of the game. So you put the plaque in there and you put an asterisk next to it. But it does open up Pandora's box, because now we're going all the way back to 1919 Black Sox and the greatest player of that era, Shoeless Joe Jackson. How are you going to treat that one? Somebody, Norbert, you have an answer for that? And then, by the way, Norbert, in terms of talking about Catholicism and right versus wrong, how are you going to rule on Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, a.k.a. the Steroid Kings? What are we doing there? I don't have an answer for everything. I have an opinion on everything, which obviously bothers him. Maybe he's a Protestant or Episcopalian. I don't know. But Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. I think it creates a whole bunch of other things. No? Yes? John Riley says.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this at infinitum. I mean, Rose needs to be in. I mean, bottom line. And so all the other steroid guys. But I'll tell you what, the part about Norbert's comment that I loved is he said, I've listened to you for 30 years. And you'd be surprised how many people in social media comment with that kind of a line, because they feel like they've had a relationship with you for so long, whether it's Chargers broadcasting, sports talk radio, or seeing you on television.
Proves one thing: if you do it long enough, you should get good enough at it.
Okay.
Let's do one more here.
Okay. It's some more smack talk with Dodger fan. This is from the Atomic Punks. Because Manny is butthurt. The Dodgers didn't want to re-sign him, and it has been his mission to exact revenge on the Dodgers and failed. And as a Dodger fan, I suspect much of our trash-talking of Padres franchise is because of Manny. He is, after all, the face of the franchise. He's also a complete jackass.
Well, he was a punk when he first came up, and he was entitled. And he was very good. There's no doubt about that. But I had people in Baltimore tell me when he was coming out here to the West Coast, or when he actually signed with the Padres, he said, good luck to you. You're not going to enjoy this. And I struggled with him in terms of accessibility. And I dealt with him, and I didn't agree with him all the time. He surely didn't agree with me. He was the one that used the phrase on me, check the back of my baseball card. Okay. And that's fine. But he's a really good player. Has he evolved? Has he changed? Well, I think a lot of people have the opinion he has. And I don't know whether that's maturity, whether that's fatherhood, whether that's his relations with the late, great Peter Seidler. But he's different now. But at the end of the day, he was still a punk in Baltimore. And then obviously, I'm not Johnny Hustle, which offended a hell of a lot of people at Dodger Stadium. And then he signed down here. So, yeah. But except the fact he is a really, really good complete ball player. He just balls all the time. You can't get him out of the lineup. And there's a real check mark there in terms of dedication to the game, even if you don't like the persona.
Well, I remember when the Padres signed him. What was that? 2019, I think, right? And I just kept repeating to myself in my mind, I can't believe the Padres signed Manny Machado.
I can't believe they paid him $30 million, but then he was out to get the biggest payday he could. He was Juan Soto before Juan Soto.
Yeah, and you can't blame him. He just cashing in on his market value. But I remember there were rumors that Peter Seidler was flirting with the idea of signing both Machado and Bryce Harper back then. I mean, can you imagine if that happened?
Yeah,
I mean, that'd be something.
And Bryce Harper's trying to be a hell of a player in the glare of the spotlight. He was in the glare of the spotlight with the Washington Nationals at age 18, and he's been a fine player, and he's been willing to do anything. You know, he first came up, I think, as a catcher, and then and then they're going to make him an outfielder. Yeah, he's from Las Vegas. He was a catcher, made him an outfielder, and they moved him to first base. And he just announced, if you want to put me back in the outfield, because the Phillies are trying to get another first baseman with a bat, he said, I'll go back to right field if you want. Just tell me what glove to take, and I'll do it. He's a really good player.
I think Rafael Devers needs to take some notes from that guy.
Exactly.
You know, I'll play wherever you want, but I love the smack talk, the Padre-Dodger rivalry. I love it all. Dodgers have the upper hand right now. I understand that, but there'll be a time when they're going to get knocked off their perch. So
you promise me that you won't go through the months of April and May and June pissed off because you're not doing well in the Dodger Invitational Tournament?
Yeah.
National League schedule.
I'll tell you what, man. I mean, the Padres are going to surprise. They're going to be better than you think. And the Dodgers, everything is going their way. It's always going their way. That's not going to continue. There's going to be some curses and bad luck for them as well.
On the back license plate of your SUV in the garage here, does it say homeboy? Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this podcast. We're here Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30. We do sports talk the way it should be done. We do put topics on the table. We love having you part of the Fans Forum chat box at the end. Please tell everybody, just message everybody in your Rolodex who we are, where we are. Hacksaw's back. Invite them to check my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. It's all written, and be with us on the podcast Mondays and Thursdays. Podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. Go to Dixieline.com, see what they've got to offer. I don't know if you're going to be here Monday. We'll find out when the NHL trading deadline comes and goes, whether your ass has been traded, but we'll be back here. I will be here Monday at 1:30, and I hope you will too.
You need to dig out some fresh hoodies, the Jets hoodie or something. I want to see some of these other teams.
We got some other stuff. We'll go find it in the back of the closet. Thanks.
Okay.
Have a great sports weekend.
Same to you.
You have a great sports weekend. Always great to have you as one of our teammates on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.